So here we are, just a little bit into December, just a little past that very powerful full moon. In the Northern Hemisphere, the days are getting very, very short and very, very cold here in California. I imagine even more so for all of you who are in other places. And that puts us in this space of the spiraling in toward Christmas. I think of it that way, or even the spiraling in toward the winter solstice. Seems like in the Northern Hemisphere, certainly, we pay attention to these days with all the Advent preparations that we make in different ways. And here it is, just the beginning of that. And I love just the beginning of that kind of things. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here in this presentation. Talk about the Advent wreath that you see on the advertisement for this event, and then also move into how Advent is a time of moving deep into a Marian mystery while Mary carries the infant in her as she prepares for the birth. And I'm also going to read you some from my book, Hama's Quest, about her journey during the Advent time, which we don't know exactly when Hama lived, but it was before the birth. I think there's a tradition in Hebridean mythology where the timelines kind of move and change. And if any of you are familiar with the picture of Bridget being carried by angels back to the Nativity, anybody know that picture? Yeah, okay. It's the notion is that Bridget wanted to be the midwife to Mary. And even though she lived at a later time, somehow the angels managed to work that all out. So they're carrying her across the Hebridean Sea with a seal leaping through and seabirds flying above her head. And it's kind of like the timelines all weave together and make something very interesting. So you'll notice that quality in the writing I'm going to share with you. And what I mean by the first light of Advent, I'm kind of taken from the Steiner school tradition, Waldorf schools, and they speak of the lights of the Advent wreath as the lights of Advent. So this little wreath I made from the leaves I pressed all during the fall, and I'm going to add to this all month. I'd always put it on top of my labyrinth. And each of the candles then represents one of the lights of Advent. And this first light is the light of the stones. So that gets us in touch with that kind of solid, dense part of creation, the shells, the seashells, our own bones. And so the practice is to put crystals and rocks on for the first week and to sing a verse about the first light of Advent being the light of the stones. But this time of the year here in Northern Hemisphere, there's some images I took up at Deer Heart Labyrinth a couple of years ago in December when the light's very low on the sky and we have this kind of magical time in this part of the world. And Brother David Stendelrast shares this with us. He says, "May you grow still enough to hear the small noises earth makes in preparing for the long sleep of winter, so that you yourself may grow calm and grounded deep within. May you grow still enough to hear the trickling of water seeping into the ground, so that your soul may be softened and healed and guided in its flow. May you grow still enough to hear the splintering of starlight in the winter sky and the roar at Earth's fiery core. May you grow still enough to hear the stir of a single snowflake in the air, so that your inner silence may turn into hushed expectation." So that's a good one to breathe in, because that is the mood that probably we all long for this time of year, the inner silence and the hushed expectation. And that moves with all the Advent imagery in the church as well, of expecting the birth of the Savior. In California, this season heralds the beginning of the mosses and the greening coming back. So these are California images that speak December to me, even though the greening begins. This is the Labyrinth back at Deer Heart, which we hope to reclaim someday. There she is in December, in the December light. So this again are the 4 lights of Advent, the light of the stones. And the second light next week, I put a lot of plants and greenery into the wreath. And we celebrate all that grows in the vegetable world, in the plant world. And then the third week, week of Advent, third light, you light the candle for the beasts, all the creatures we share the planet with. And then in the fourth light of Advent is the light of humankind. And there the practice is to put a small creche scene in the middle of the beasts and the plants and the stones, highlighting that beautiful time of year and that the hope of that birth. Just as we welcome back the beginning of the sun coming into its fruition. Another Waldorf image that we do often at Advent is to make a walk. I always put this on my labyrinth so that there is both the spiral and the labyrinth. And we take a candle in an apple and walk that spiral, lighting it from the center. It's a very beautiful ceremony. And this image of my friend Manoush made this picture of the mother that also just speaks to me of this season of all the darkness and the light that comes in breathed by the mother. So I like to share this poem of Advent also. It's by Jessica Powers. And she says, I live my Advent in the womb of Mary, and on one night when a great star swings free from its high mooring and walks down the sky to be the dot above the Christo's eye, I shall be born of her by blessed grace, with hope's expectance of nativity. I knew for long she carried me and fed me, guarded and loved me, though I could not see. But only now with inward jubilee, I come upon earth's most amazing knowledge. Someone is hidden in this dark with me. I commend that poem to you to read many, many times. It has layer upon layer of the hope of new life and new birth and the joy of being accompanied in our darkness. So just a few Mary images to connect to that quality at this time also. The mother getting ready to give birth. This is Guadalupe, who is made in Thailand actually, but her feast day is in this time too. It's next Friday. It's interesting where that energy comes to us seasonally and how Mary is depicted in the various cultures. But this rendition here for us in California particularly is ubiquitous. Guadalupe is everywhere and celebrated with roses next Friday. And then I like to think of this old picture of the old crypt at Chartres before it got cleaned up in any way, that always felt to me like the absolute womb. And there the statue of Notre Dame de Piliers welcomes us into the deep dark, much as the Advent poem reminds us. This is in the crypt of Chartres Cathedral in France. So let's just all take a breath together because I'm going to shift us to a different landscape now for a moment. But just imagine that inner place, that your own inner space that may be gestating the light right now. And those of you in Australia, that's a whole different story, but you remember how it is on the other end of the year when we get quieter and the light seems to dim as it does in the day. But there is something warm and glowing and usually is on the inside. So, keeping that in mind, if you will, I'm going to take us on a little journey to the Isle of Lewis, where Hama, my heroine in this novel, spends the time from autumn equinox to Imbolc. So through a couple of seasons there she goes. And this is her story about this time. This is the stone circle that Hama lives next to for those seasons and tends, and she's all alone there. This is a circle of stones in the far outer Hebrides that was built at the same time as Stonehenge back with the Neolithic people. So Hama has been sent here to have a vision questing experience. And in her time, these are ancient also. So she relates to them as a gift from the ancestors that she attunes to and seeks to energize again so that they can do their job. That's a picture of the inner circle. So I'll leave that up as I read so you can just imagine yourself. This is the center, and around that center are 13 stones. We've done ceremony there with people standing at each stone and moving, praying their way around the spiral and into this very center place. So Hama has been here for a while. She's also accompanied by a creature named Beloved, who is a very furry, lovely creature. Now the days grew ever shorter. Beloved hardly stirred, blending her animal rhythms to the quiet hibernation of the earth. I felt much the same. Each day when the light made its brief appearance, I rose and moved my body through the stretches of greeting, breathing in the fresh air I welcomed through the tiny window in my hut. If the sun shined that day, I would make my way out of the temple hut, lighting my precious candles and burning the incense that took me to the May fields and to Will, who is her beloved. I remembered the crone who gave me the frankincense and talked of the teachers of the faraway desert lands. Closing my eyes in meditation, I began to receive images of a landscape utterly different than any I had known. People walked dusty roads accompanied by creatures similar to Beloved, but larger and with humps on their backs. They were beasts of burden, and it seemed like people were traveling these dusty roads in great numbers. The sun was bright in this place, so the air was cold, and at night stars shined in the dome of the sky. One star caught my eye, and each time I entered into this landscape, I watched that star grow brighter. So quiet was my mind that I took these sojourns to the desert place of the bright star as just another part of the rhythm of winter. After I meditated, I roused a sleepy beloved and encouraged her out onto the landscape where grass still grew so she could find some nourishment. Whenever the sun made an appearance, beloved would hum, perhaps also dreaming of warm spring days and fresh spring grass. After making my own breakfast, I would return to the temple and write a bit more of my story. I captured my long journey through the year, writing especially fervently about my time at Beltane. One day, though, before solstice, I decided to see what my knowings would reveal about my meditations in the desert. As I wrote, I began to see a particular family on the dusty road. The woman was very pregnant, the man older. She rode on a beast of burden. I imagined her soul. It was luminous, full of the starlight I had seen in my meditations. Like me, this woman seemed to have a particular quest, and the baby she carried shone bright as well. Wherever they passed, smiles would appear on the faces of the long-robed desert folk. They were on a journey home. Soon they came to a place of many buildings and searched for a place to stay. The woman was nearing her time of delivery, and only a rough stable could be found to spend the night. Humans and animals huddled close. The stars shined ever brighter overhead. By my calculations, solstice was the next day. I knew that my ceremony for this day of great turning had to be very special. I would conduct it at the moment of sunrise, which meant arising in the deep dark and making my way to the stone circle. I knew that the rituals of Avalon would be happening at that very same time as my own. In Avalon, the priestesses would proceed to the Tor, spiraling as they went, praying prayers of gratitude for all the gifts of the dark time, dipping into the great ocean of the dark one last time before they marked the moment when the light began to return. The solstice ceremony required a profound attention to the still small voice that could only be heard in the silence of the darkest moment of the year. It was the high priestess's responsibility to dwell in that silence so all could resonate with her. These memories were with me as I walked down the avenue of stones leading to the spiral. The ground crunched frosty under my feet, and above my head the stars sparkled. It was clear, quiet, and so very cold. The crystalline structure of the stones caught starlight. As I greeted each stone in succession, I noted the oneness of light in the darkness, the gleaming stones, the starry sky, the spark of awareness deep in my own being. I quieted as I reached the sixth stone, hearing the still small voice that I knew was the same voice that the high priestess was hearing back on the Tor. What unfolded then in my inner knowings would become one of the teachings of my entire life. As I linked with the high priestess, I saw a constellation of stars, each one emanating from the forehead of a woman. I then saw the desert woman who I'd been meditating with. She was part of the constellation, the light in her swelling with each contraction of her womb. This woman, connected to all the priestesses over time and space, was giving birth. I watched and breathed with her, noticing that the whole constellation pulsed with ever brighter light. The star overhead in the desert pulsed in the same rhythm, and soon a son was delivered, bathed in the light. And that was Hama's take on this time of year. So it's time for us to be with our own dreamings of what this Advent time means, this time of, thank you, Lori, of the inner spiral, if you will. Thank you, Anthea. So for that, we're going to need our labyrinths. And let's just put our hands on them here. And let ourselves to tune deep within. So letting those images work with you a bit. The images of the far north and the images of the nature of my particular world here, but think of your own too. How does this moment in early December appear in your world? And how do you prepare? How do you attune to the expectancy of the season? And relishing the last bits of the darkening time, as it does change after solstice. There's a movement that changes. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the movement toward the dark. This pulsation we share on this planet. So just use your breath for a moment. Feel your labyrinth. Feel yourself connected to whatever it is that wants to come through you at this point. Whatever ever weaving of images and time in your day and what's going on in your life, however all those come together to bring you a walk of clarity and purpose. I'll sing one song, um, and then I'll play some flute for you. And this is a song I used to sing in a choir I was in that was an Advent song that always touched the little girl in me. So I'll give you that first. So begin your walk, please, and we'll be back to each other in 10 minutes. Beyond the moon and stars, as deep as night, so great our hunger, Lord, to see your light. The sparrow finds her home beneath your wing. So may we come to rest where angels sing. Your roads have led us, Lord, cross desert sand. We place our hopes and dreams within your hand. Beyond the moon and stars, as deep as night, so great our hunger, Lord, to see your light. The sparrow finds her home beneath your wing. So may we come to rest where angels sing. With shining stars at night and cloud by day, you brought us here to see your love's display. Beyond the moon and stars, as deep as night, so great our hunger, Lord, to see your light. The sparrow finds her home beneath your wing. So may we come to rest where angels sing. So as you begin to come back to this room and this circle of friends, let your eyes stay closed and let your hands come to the center of the labyrinth. And let's put yourself right there. And we'll imagine, as we often do, that we all are standing in the different rings of the labyrinth, hand in hand. Our whole community centered for a moment in our common prayer and our common understanding of what's going on in our world together. And the deep need to come to a place of silence and stillness and peace. To remember the practices that sustain us. And if you would, in this imagining, just send your love out through your hands to the others you're imaginally holding hands with. Send the energy around our circle that stretches around the globe. Call in those who aren't here but you know belong. Imagine this great circle upon circle of connection that this practice brings us. And breathe in that collective, loving presence that we bring to each other as we attune to our deep inner selves on this labyrinth walk. And if you have a good visual or imagining of these circles upon circles, you can think in the middle of us all, a great light shines. And we send that light wherever it needs to go on our planet right now and far into the cosmos. Knowing that each act of loving kindness brings this light further into fruition. And come back here in your imagination during this Advent time if you want to join us and be with the practice of spiraling in toward the solstice, of spiraling in toward the day of Christmas. And we'll all be here welcoming you. Well, so Adriana just wrote in the chat, she thanked Don and I, and she said, "We are the Friday stars shining bright, healing what needs to be healed." Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. That's it, Don. I just wanted to tell
And
that.
then I want to thank all of you for your connection to Veriditas. We are just in the middle of our year-end fundraising campaign. And this past Tuesday was Giving Tuesday, and we're just a little short of our Giving Tuesday goal. So I did put the link in the chat as well. If you're able to even give $10, if 14 people gave $10, I think we might make it over the top. So thank you. Thank you so much for being present and participating in strengthening our inward selves. So we will hopefully see you next week.